Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bama Blind. I'm Beverly, and as you can see in today's title, I'm going to tell a story. The title is a take on a book that I read many, many years ago. The title of the actual book is called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and it's by Mark Haddon, Haddon. If you haven't read that book, I would strongly encourage you to read it. It's just a super book, and but I borrowed the title. And by the way, titles can never be copyrighted. I learned that a long time ago from an author, and he just drilled it into my head that titles can never be copyrighted. And the title of my video today is just a take on that book title. So my title is called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Daytime, and it's by me, Beverly. I want to share this with you. This time last week, I would not be able to upload this because it actually was an incident that affected me to the point that I was taken back and pretty much in shock. I would call it post-traumatic stress. It wasn't yet a disorder, and it is not a disorder now, but it's definitely a stressful incident that happened probably about 10 days ago. So it's taken me this long to digest it and understand it and get comfortable enough to talk about it. And it might sound ridiculous to some people, but for me, this is how I react to stressful events. So I will preface the story by saying that I have a guide dog, Gretchen. I've had her for 3 years and 3 months now. And Gretchen has got, above all else, excellent public behavior. And I'm always very assured that when she and I go into any public place, she is just going to be either invisible if she darts under a table like in a restaurant, or if she is not, she typically sits and rests at my feet with her chin on the ground. I didn't know that she did this until I had visitors at the Seeing Eye who said, okay, when she's laying at your feet, she is got her chin on the ground, her ears are straight up, and she's watching everything that's going on. I just thought she was resting because I didn't ever had a guide dog. And you can hear her now barking because she's requesting that I come play with her because we've been out and about and we're back home and she's ready to play with her ball. But we're not going to play right now. I'm going to keep talking. So I'll preface that by saying Gretchen has excellent public behavior. During COVID, it's been very, very difficult because we don't go anywhere. There are no organized activities for us to go to. We stay on our same routes that I'm familiar with in my neighborhood. So we really haven't been out and about. We try to restrict our exposure. So Jerry, my husband who drives, is the one that's gone to the grocery store or, to pick up takeout if we have takeout that we pick up. That sounds kind of crazy, but we typically don't have it delivered. Although we've gone to a couple of fast food places and sat in the parking lot and eaten. Other than that, our state is pretty ravaged with COVID right now, so we're being very, very careful. Recently, I have uploaded a video where you might have seen Gretchen in action, where we were getting into a building where I had a regular doctor's appointment, and I had Jerry video Gretchen going from the car to the building and through the checkpoint, and then finding the elevator, and then finding the office door of the doctor. And we didn't video beyond that for privacy purposes for the rest of the patients. But I can assure you that when we went to that visit, Gretchen walked into that waiting room with me, and Jerry found us a chair. Gretchen doesn't find the chairs usually, but she can find a chair, but she's not as good at that as she is with finding doorways and elevators and things like that. So anyway, Gretchen sits at my feet, and she's got her chin usually rested straight down on the ground with her ears up, and she's constantly watching. Now, if we're in there for several minutes, say, 20, 30 minutes, she might lay on her side. Usually, though, I mean, always, though, with her face pointed toward the rest of the room so that she can see what's going on and she's not surprised. So she's always on duty. Sometimes, if it's crowded, I will just do a tuck and shove. So she goes down on her belly with her chin down, and I face her nose straight out in front of us, and then I just shove her body in underneath the chair, uh, harness and all. And then if I need to, I put her on a long leash so that there's plenty of space and the leash isn't pulling on her choke collar. So we do this everywhere we go. She goes with me to the dentist. I go to the dentist 3 times a year because I just do. My husband's a dentist. What can I say? So 3 times a year I go for a cleaning, and Gretchen knows how to get into the operatory. She knows that she goes around to the left and she lays down on, it's just a routine. She lays down on my left-hand side of the dental chair, and the dentist is on my right, and she's just very comfortable there. Her chin is on the cold tile, and she just lays with her ears up, and she does that for a good hour because we're there for an hour. She does the same thing with my eye doctor now. I go to the eye doctor once or twice a year. She's on the right-hand side there because the left-hand side would impede the doctor's ability to get around to her equipment. So Gretchen is in the same position there, both in the waiting room and in the operatory. So in restaurants, I've had many servers say, I didn't even know you had a guide dog. I know I've said this 100 times on my videos. So last week, well, 10 days ago, I was in another medical environment because, you know, when you go to your doctor's appointment and they order blood work and stuff, I could have done the blood work that very day, but the lab was closed. So I had to do another trip to another building, which I wasn't videoing. I thought about it, but I wasn't videoing that day. And so Jerry and I arrive at the building, and we walk in and we check in like normal. Gretchen is guiding, and she's been to this building before. Actually, she was there about 2 months ago for my regular screenings. Gretchen goes with me to, I had a bone scan, which I've had a couple of times before, and mammogram, which I've had, and she goes with me to all of those appointments, and she's just excellent, and she gets a lot of attention from a lot of people that are passing by. So this day it's no different except from getting my blood work, and blood work doesn't bother me in the least. Jerry and I are chit-chatting about the rest of our day, what we're going to be doing, and suddenly Gretchen growls a vicious growl, barks, and jerks forward. Now, prior to this, Gretchen was down at my feet, as she always has been for 3 years and 3 months. So there was nothing different about us sitting in this huge waiting room. And without vision, I was not able to see what she was growling at or what happened, but I know she jerked the leash hard enough that had I not had control of her, she could have jerked a good 3 feet away from me. I immediately gave her the scold command, which, is at the seeing eye is phooey. And that's the worst thing I can say to Gretchen. And I shamed her because that's unacceptable behavior. And I had her position with her nose straight out, and I shoved her up under my chair, and I placed my feet in front of her nose. So basically her nose was able to protrude out between my feet, but she was quite comfortable under my chair with her harness on and with the leash, and I didn't have to put her on a long leash. But I was mortified, and I can't begin to explain my shock, and that might sound over dramatic, but when you're walking around with a guide dog for so long, so consistently, with excellent public behavior, and suddenly out of the blue she changes her behavior, I was absolutely in shock. I didn't know what happened, so immediately Jerry and I started discussing what had just happened, and he explained that visually he saw a lady that was coming into the huge waiting area where we were, and she was about 15 feet away from us, and she was checking into the kiosk. And he saw nothing different about her, nothing unusual at all. He didn't see anything at all. So out of the blue, Gretchen just growled, barked, and jerked at the same time. And I, shamed her. I corrected her and shoved her under the chair. And she stayed there for the next 10 minutes while I was absolutely going over every single thing in my repertoire to think of what could have happened. And they called my name. It was time for me to go back and get my blood work done. So Jerry and I walked back to the door, and the door closes. And then someone says to me, your dog just growled at a lady. And I said, yes, I'm aware of that. And it's the first time it's ever happened. So I had this long conversation with what I thought was the technician that was fixing to take my blood. After it was all said and done, I found out through Jerry that it was not a technician, it was not an orderly, it was the security guard for the building. So the lady had left the area and gone and reported to the security guard that there was a vicious dog in the waiting room and that it almost bit her. So, now I was really in shock because I explained to what I thought was an orderly at the time, no, my dog doesn't bite. And no, she was never near the woman because the lady was 15 feet away. And Jerry attested to that. He said, she was 15 feet away from us at all times. And then she left the room. So when she left the room, she went to report this. And it's a good thing they weren't taking my blood pressure because I was in a state of shock and I couldn't really converse with this person. I didn't even know that they were security guards. So part of this whole incident was me finding out a day later, and I'll tell you when I found out, because I was in such a state of disbelief with Gretchen, my outstanding dog, having this strange, curious incident happen, that I called the Seeing Eye to see if I could talk with a trainer to find out what could happen, what would cause this, what do I need to do if this happens again? Because I was in post-traumatic stress at this point, thinking I'm not taking her out again anywhere until I find out from an expert what might have happened. So the next day, the trainer called me back, and I knew the trainer from 3 years ago. She's a senior trainer, and we talked for a long, long time. And I was so grateful for that because I needed counseling at this point. And again, if you don't have a guide dog, this might not make any sense to you. But the thing I can compare it to is like if you're a driver and you're driving a vehicle, and let's say every day you take this vehicle to work and back and on all of your errands, and then one day in the middle of a huge super intersection, your vehicle stalls out and stops. And now you are in a state of stress. Now, what do? It's never happened before. You're not prepared for this, and it stops. And you think, I can't count on this vehicle to take me anywhere. Now, what if it happens tomorrow? What if it happens the next day? When is it going to decide it's going to stall out? Will I be in a heavy traffic area like an interstate? What am I going to do? All of these things you second guess, and that's no different than me and my guide dog Gretchen. We're out and about, and I depend on her to get me from point A to point B safely. I also depend on her to have excellent behavior in public so that she can get me from point A to point B safely. So I discussed this with the trainer at the Seeing Eye, and she was super understanding. And the bottom line of this curious incident with the dog in the daytime is there had to have been, according to the trainer, some behavior that the person exhibited. It could have been a visual behavior that Jerry didn't see. My husband, I would never have seen it anyway. But that something that Gretchen saw that was threatening to her. The trainer said that behavior would have been direct eye contact by the person to Gretchen without releasing the eye contact. And I can't make eye contact with Gretchen, so I don't know. I can't test her. We can't work on those kinds of things. But that is a very, very curious incident for a dog if she has direct eye contact with an individual and that eye contact is not broken by the individual. That's very threatening. The second part of what the trainer said is, I have a breed, she's a German Shepherd, and she's very protective. And the third thing the trainer said is, Gretchen is a dog. Gretchen is not a machine. She is a dog, and a dog is a dog is a dog. And you can't breed out of a guide dog the fact that she is a dog and her breed is naturally protective. What you can do is correct immediately and assume that this was a freak incident, or in my case, a curious incident of the dog in the daytime. So I have taken Gretchen 3 different places since that time where she had to sit for over an hour and wait, and she had her perfect public behavior. So my prayer is that this is just an incident that happened that is not going to repeat itself. The trainer says if it does repeat itself, I must correct immediately, like I did, and explain, Gretchen, this is not acceptable, through correction and through me placing her down and under, which is under the chair, which, I've kind of got lax, especially in social distancing, because there's never a crowded waiting room anywhere. So the one last thing that I will say in this video is that the trainer, again, who was so patient with me, because I truly was in a state of shock and I truly kind of was paralyzed until I got this straightened out and adjusted in my mind as to how I was going to deal with this as a handler. This is my first guide dog, even though I'm 62. This is my first guide dog. And, I'm learning. I'm still learning after 3 years. But the thing that the trainer explained, that during COVID, they have had to counsel with so many guide dog handlers, and those that are senior handlers, those that have been doing it for years and decades, and those that are relatively new like myself, because the dogs are dogs and they're not accustomed to not being out and about. Their whole purpose for training is to get us, the blind handler, out into society, interacting, whether that should be in employment, in social activities, in independent living, shopping, and taking care of independent living needs. That's what the dog is for. And during COVID, we haven't been really allowed to move about freely, which means our dogs aren't allowed to move about freely. So the bottom line of this curious incident of the dog in the daytime is, hopefully, it was a one-time incident, maybe a 2-time incident. I will continue to have my I guess my feelers out to make sure that I'm aware that Gretchen might do this, so that I won't be taken by surprise like I was. And again, like the car that stalls in the middle of an intersection, a car that's never failed you before, but it can happen. And once it does, you just got to get back up on your horse and ride off. So I'm going to get back up on my horse, actually harness up Gretchen, continue our routes as we can in safe social distancing, and continue to have her go out each and every time that I can get out and expose her to different social environments. And I'll keep you updated on how she does, because I don't want to portray that everything is all rosy when it's not, and I'm not going to portray that it is truly bad when it's not. So right now we're on a wait and see. If I see any more of this kind of behavior, I certainly will let everybody know, because I think we learn from each other. I know I learned from fellow trainees at the Seeing Eye. And I must say now publicly that my classmate passed away in December, and I would have been on the phone calling him, George, to say, you've had 5 dogs prior. What, am I looking at this the wrong way? But I was glad that I called my trainer, and she was so patient and reassuring, and I'll send her the fee for her counseling session. And I hope all of you have a really safe and socially distanced and healthy and happy upcoming week. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.